Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take the sources you send us, really dig in, and try to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, get to the bottom of it.
And today we've got one that's, well, it's a perfect example of where knowledge can pop up unexpectedly.
Definitely.
We're going to tackle how calculus, differentiation specifically, connects to, believe it or not, how cattle digest food.
That's right. We're looking at source material you shared, basically a paper about using the derivative to model the rate of digestion.
Right, the speed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially when cows are eating things like fiber-rich agricultural residues, stuff that's tough to break down.
So our mission really is to unpack that connection, see how they actually use the math and, what we can learn from applying it to biology like this.
Okay, so let's get into it. The absolute core idea, like you said, from the source, using the derivative to understand the speed of digestion.
The speed at which a cow breaks down that really fibrous feed, like leftover crop material.
Yeah, and you normally think calculus, you think physics problems, maybe finance.
Right.
Right.
Not the inside of a cow's stomach, the rumen.
Exactly. But that's what makes it so interesting. The key insight here is that digestion happens over time. It's a process.
Okay, yeah. So not just like how much nutrition they get out eventually.
Not just the total amount, no. It's also really crucial how fast they get it.
Yeah.
The how fast part, well, that's a rate of change.
And that's where calculus comes in.
Precisely. The derivative is like the fundamental tool for measuring those rates of change.
Yeah.
Specifically, the instantaneous rate. How fast something is changing at any given moment.
So the researchers in the source, they probably measure how much fiber is left over time?
Something like that, yeah. Maybe the mass of some fiber component in the digestive tract over, say, several hours.
Oh,
Then the derivative of that measurement at any specific time point tells them exactly how fast that fiber is disappearing right then and there.
wow, okay. So it gives a moment-by-moment picture of the digestion speed.
You got it. It turns it from just, it gets digested into a measurable dynamic process.
And that really grounds the math, doesn't it? For anyone learning differentiation, this isn't just curves on a graph.
Exactly. It's a quantitative tool for analyzing a pretty complex, messy biological system.
And the source really zeroes in on that specific context. These high-fiber diets from agricultural leftovers shows how targeted these models can be.
Right, because those residues are often tricky for the animals to really get the full value from.
So what did the source actually find using the derivative?
Well, a key thing they likely explored is that the digestion rate isn't constant. It changes.
Ah, okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, it might start faster, then slow down as, like, the easier to digest bits are used up by the gut microbes, leaving the tougher stuff.
And the derivative lets them pinpoint when the rate peaks and when it drops off.
Exactly. The paper probably shows that kind of curve, maybe a fast initial rate that then tails off significantly. Understanding that changing rate is, well, it's super important.
Because then you can start asking practical questions.
Right, totally. Questions the source probably gets into, like, if we add a supplement, does it speed up that slow phase?
Or does processing the feed differently beforehand change how that rate looks over time?
Yes. The derivative gives you the analytical lens to even ask those questions properly, using actual numbers.
And that's where it gets really relevant, I think. Seeing calculus applied to something like optimizing feed efficiency. That impacts farming, costs, productivity.
It really does. It makes the math feel incredibly practical. This isn't just some academic exercise the source describes. It could genuinely help in agriculture.
So by using derivatives to understand that digestion rate.
Researchers, maybe even farmers eventually, can make smarter, data-backed decisions about feed mixes, maybe timing, how to process feed.
To get the most nutrition out of these challenging kinds of feed, it's about making the process more efficient.
Turning that biological black box into something you can actually measure and hopefully optimize.
So, wrapping up, we've seen how a core calculus concept, the derivative, gives us this really neat window into cow digestion. Specifically, the speed it happens at, especially with tough, fibrous food.
Yeah, it reveals the dynamics of the process.
And that leaves a thought, maybe, for you listening. Where else might these math concepts you're learning, rates of change, maybe integration for accumulation, other ideas?
Good question.
Where else might they be hiding? Working away silently in parts of the world that seem, totally non-mathematical on the surface?
Yeah, keep an eye out for those hidden rates, those processes.
Yeah.
You might be surprised where math turns up.